Look at the guy smoking a cigarette in the window.
What smoking cigarette in the window?
It's right in front of you.
Yes. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Hi, welcome to TFL Design. My name is Phoenix, and I am back from vacation. I am back from a 3-week, almost 1-month vacation to Taiwan and Japan. In this video, I'm going to show just the Taiwan portion, the first part of my Taiwan portion anyway, and just show you the city that my husband's family is from. I've been here a few times, usually during the early spring season when it's not super hot. This time I went during the winter quote-unquote season for them, although as a person that lives in Canada, I never saw it as cold. To them, 15 degrees Celsius, aka what is that, like 60 degrees Fahrenheit is cold or something? That was ridiculous. They were in puffer jackets. I was like in a thin jacket and like, jeans with holes in it. Anyway, this will be part 1 of I don't know how many videos of my trip. And this first part will contain just the Taiwan portion where I show, a little bit around the city, a little bit of where I stayed, and, just the great food that I got here, which in comparison, in Asia, Taiwan's one of the cheaper places to eat at. You can have a full meal for one person for like $5 if you eat like street food and stuff like that. Taiwan is, of course, the home of bubble tea. So I love going back to Taiwan to try all their different flavors. Their fruits and vegetables are like definitely one of the freshest you can get. I am always food depressed whenever I come back from Asia because we don't buy our groceries from places that have the freshest food. We all know supermarket products are stuff that were picked off the tree or plant or whatever prior to being ripe and then shipped in a container in a truck for a few days and ripen on the shelves of supermarkets. So it's not usually the sweetest or the best. In Japan, I know for a fact these plants and seafood especially were definitely something that were probably fished or collected that morning in the farmer's market and literally swimming a few moments ago before placed onto my plate. A little graphic, and I will warn that later in this video there will be a portion where Peking duck is shown being made live. So like if you are not into seeing how food is really made, or the spectacle of, putting food on fire, probably don't watch this video. As you can see from the clips in this video, I'll also be including some of my luxury shopping adventures, although I won't focus on it specifically in one video or anything, because it's only a small part of my entire vacation. I would say most of this vacation is bougie AF, so definitely not something that I do often. This was definitely a result of the lockdown for several years, not being able to go anywhere for several years. I'd like to note that during my luxury shopping there, they did not care that I was dressed so casually, nor did I have to pretend I was wealthy in any way. So I and my friends went kind of all out in a super bougie vacation to the point where I'm pretty much going to be eating ramen for a few weeks because of how poor I am now. Definitely worth it though, so stay tuned. You'll notice that most of Taiwan and Japan still wear masks. Outdoors you don't need to, but as like a courtesy and cultural thing, everyone does it anyway, even though the mask mandate was lifted from indoors from Taiwan literally days after I left Taiwan on February 20th or something they lifted. And when I went back to Taiwan towards the end of my vacation, a few people had their masks off indoors, but for the most part, I think they were so used to wearing it that most people, out of cultural respect or just the mentality that it's not really over yet, just kept their mask on, even though you technically didn't need to unless you rode public transportation. In Japan, though, you had to wear it anytime you were indoors. Anyway, Taiwan, I know it to be like a moped central. It is by far one of the most, if not the most, heavily trafficked places in terms of the use of a moped. They drive it everywhere. Most people are like, I always find it insane how they will weave in between larger vehicles and like make turns along with the vehicle without the fear of being crushed. I never know when to cross the streets if they don't have a traffic light. Some traffic lights in the more rural areas are like suggestions because they just blink on and off and traffic just goes through and you kind of just walk into the street and weave in between vehicles and find a free space to go in and hope you don't get hit. Locals are used to it, I guess. And I see small children cross the street by themselves without any problem, but I, as an adult raised in the West, always have a tiny panic attack every time I have to cross the street, and it takes a little bit of time for me to get used to it. This is only once again in parts of rural Taipei where this happens. Of course, in the bigger parts of the city where this clip is taking place, in the downtown area, there are traffic lights that people follow. As you can see, there's a lot of nerd culture that goes on in Taiwan as well. A lot of things that are being sold in Japan, you can actually get at almost a better price in Taiwan once in a while. I'll go into detail later on about how luxury goods, strangely, are more expensive in Taiwan in comparison to Japan. But things like Gundam model kits and other nerd statues, for some reason, are slightly cheaper in Taiwan than it is in Japan. Taiwan, while heavily influenced with a Chinese background, is also heavily influenced with a Japanese and Western culture background. So a lot of the building structures and their service industry, I would say, is similar to Japan. Unfortunately, Taiwan still has a lot of old buildings and old plumbing, meaning squat toilets everywhere, and you can't flush toilet paper down into the toilets. You have to like throw it into the garbage can that are in the stalls, and it's just very annoying. There are, however, Western style toilets in every train station. I think it's like a mandate in Taipei, Taiwan, that they have these types since it is a very high traffic tourist area. I will say, because of the recent restrictions to China, there are not as many mainland Chinese tourists about. This is something I will touch on in my Japan videos as well. It affected them even more. But in any case, other parts of the world are now visiting Taiwan again, and so obviously they need to accommodate Westerners. And so other than the young generation slowly speaking English because they learn it in school, things like facilities and amenities and stuff like that all have stuff that Westerners can easily access and get used to. Especially when you get to the tourist buildings like this Taipei 101, one of the world's tallest buildings. And when you go luxury shopping, obviously they cater to a lot of Westerners. And so they'll definitely have something that you will be more comfortable using. This is the giant metal ball that stabilizes the entire building, by the way. I did not encounter an earthquake while I was there, but it was good to see and good to know. So maybe by now you're wondering, what the heck was that? Why did I finally reveals some of the natural sounds that came from my videos rather than doing this entire video in voiceover. Well, a few reasons. I, once again, went on this vacation with friends and family, so I didn't want to reveal too much of their voice since they prefer to stay out of my videos. And also, unfortunately, in a lot of places that we went to, the discussions that I had with a few of my friends were not optimal to place into videos. We are a very immature group of people, and the types of discussions we had in the background were sometimes so inane and so inappropriate that I had to cut them out of the video, and thus you could not hear the natural sounds of either the nature shots or the shots of the city and stuff like that. But you can imagine it's a lot of moped sounds, the sound of food frying in the street, food nightlife, and of course, stinky tofu. In this part of the video, you can see we've come to one of the coasts of Taiwan, a tourist area where you see some very strange, almost like mushroom-looking rocks. The way the water and time has eroded it over time is actually pretty cool. There was also a random doggo that was, running around checking people out. We made friends and then he went on with his life. There were also these really cool fossilized crustacean / starfish looking creature stuff. They were all over the rocks, and some of them were much older than others. So one of the original reasons we came to Taiwan first before jumping to Japan is so that we could acclimate ourselves with the time zone difference. Taiwan is 13 hours ahead of where I live in Canada, I believe, while Japan was 14. And so if I started my vacation in Japan, I would end up being extremely tired and unable to do the very rigorous schedule that we had planned for ourselves. You'll see in my future Japan vlogs how crazy they were and how lucky we were. But for now, in Taiwan, this was our days of rest, especially for one of the friends who had never traveled abroad before and had never experienced jet lag. I have to say, this time I did really well in terms of jet lag. I didn't feel tired at all when I landed in Taiwan and had to move about and do everything on the first day. I think it was due to the excitement of being back in Asia after a long time. We had also gone back a little after their Lantern Festival had just ended, as you can see here. And now the moment you've been waiting for. A quick look at all the food I had while I was there. Other than street foods, I got to try my first 3-star Michelin restaurant, which specialized in dim sum and other Chinese dishes. The restaurant was extremely bougie, and the waiter kept rearranging our silverware to be perfectly straight.
带给竹青的香气。第一卷是服务是鸦片脆度，第二卷会包鸭肉，这样口感跟香气。
So I had been to a 1-star Michelin restaurant before. It was in Japan a few years ago for sushi. And while the food was really good and blew my mind, I can tell that the 3-star comes from the additional service. Because the service here was top-notch. Not only did they rearrange our silverware every 3 seconds, they also guided us to the restroom, basically put on our jackets and everything. I also went to a 3-star Michelin restaurant in Japan, so you'll see that in my later vlogs. I am interested to know now what a 2-star is like, because I've had 1-star and now 2 3-star, so what makes a restaurant only a 2-star? The 1-stars don't require the restaurant to have service. They could be street food vendors and they can get a star. The 1-star restaurant I went to a few years ago literally sat me next to a bunch of smokers, and so a lot of my sushi unfortunately tasted like cigarettes. So that makes me wonder, is the 2-star because it lacks the service of a 3-star? Or does it have something to do with the decor? Because the 3-stars were very moody and very pretty to be in, so I can only imagine the things that would reduce a star from your score. I could probably Google it, but I'll just leave it a mystery until I try another Michelin star restaurant. Anyway, this concludes part 1 of my Asia trip. In the next part, we will visit the first Japanese city I visited, which will be an extremely cold city, unlike the extremely warm Taiwan that I had acclimated myself to. Follow, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.